Hey, it's Chris. What are we talking about today? We're talking about Kelp, a very fascinating asymmetric two-player look at what happens when an octopus meets a shark in a head-to-head battle. Well, more of a duel. Let's talk why this is a pretty freaking good game. Let's go. What do you need to know? This is a head-to-head asymmetric dueling type style game where one person, as the shark, is going to be racing along the currents via the use of dice in order to find where the octopus is and then strike before the octopus can achieve their endgame condition of eating all 4 of their hidden pieces of food or just outweighting the shark in the first place due to the shark's limited energy. Completely asymmetric, head-to-head, highly tactical, a lot of bluffing, a lot of, I think you know what I think I'm going to do, so I'm going to do this, and a little bit of card play along with it. So let me run you through both the shark, the octopus, pros, cons, and everything else that you need to know to help you figure out whether or not this game is going to be right for you. So let's start out with the shark here. The shark has more of an asymmetric deck building, dice rolling, if you will. Now, what you're going to be doing with the shark is you're going to be taking a series of actions on a turn-by-turn basis. The player aid here runs you through what they are. Draw, roll, place your currents, move, search, strike, grow, energy. It shows you how many dice you're going to be starting with, and then you're going to be pulling and drawing them on a turn-by-turn basis. So what does that mean, essentially? Well, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking your bag at the beginning of the shark's turn, and you're going to be grabbing 2 of those dice, but you're going to have ways to upgrade that and draw more. So these dice are going to be color-coded, and those colors are going to correspond to the actions. The blue are going to be your currents, the yellows are going to be your searches, and the reds over here are going to be your strikes. And so when you roll these, the die values are going to correlate to where you can place them or use them on the board in the first place. You'll notice that the places on the board actually have numbers that correspond to the dice rolled. And then if you have a number that is that or higher, you can play it there to utilize that ability. Now with the thematic incorporation here, shark always has to be moving on their turn. And you can see outlined on the outside here and through the middle that these blue dots are the currents. Now that's where your blue dice come in. If you lay blue dice down, it allows you to bypass the spot that current is to get to the next spot. The trick with the shark is if you actually have current placed so that they are sequentially going lower in a consecutive order, that the shark can actually skip over multiple different dice in order to get to the other side or to the end. One of those dice though, and this is where the shark's moving and energy comes into play, actually get taken off the board and moved over to the other areas because they're multi-purpose. Now the tricky part is with these sharks, you're actually going to really want to utilize these because these dice are multi-use. Not only are they useful for currents moving faster across the board to get to potentially where the hidden domino you think the octopus is, but then the more you use of these, the more they allow you to then buy your cards over here or potentially upgrade your abilities as you go along here. So the used ones allow you to upgrade the abilities that you are going to get access to, the 4 that are in sequential order every single game. They're allowing you to re-roll, store energy, additional rolls, or additional die draws on the turn-by-turn basis. If you do not use your dice on all the ones you roll though, then they get slotted over here on the side. And when they're all filled up, you can use that to buy cards and abilities down here to upgrade your shark. They allow your shark to be better, stronger, faster, and more lethal in order to catch the octopus. Rinse and repeat until you find the octopus. Now, here is the tricky part when you find the octopus. This is probably the most dynamic but also divisive element of this game. Both the octopus and the shark come with 3 different cards. What happens is if the octopus plays a defensive maneuver and the shark does not counter correctly, the octopus escapes. And if the octopus escapes, then, well, you take both of those cards that the octopus played. So if the octopus played fight, for example, fight is then out. Counterfight is then out. So now if the octopus gets caught again, it's a 50-50 chance if the shark plays the correct one to counter it. If it doesn't, you remove the other one that they play, and now you can see that there's only 1 card left on each side. So the octopus is going to have to play flight. The shark is going to have only the same counter, and so the next time the octopus gets caught, the shark is going to win if they can catch it before they run out of time. So that's the shark in a nutshell. The octopus, though, is a little trickier. The octopus is more bluff, maneuver, manipulate with these domino tiles in the first place. And they've got everything from shells to traps to food, as well as the octopus that you're going to be manipulating. And it's a little bit of a guessing game to try and figure out or to say, Am I moving the octopus? Am I manipulating the octopus? Am I manipulating the food closer to get to the octopus? How am I maneuvering on a turn-by-turn basis there? And what the octopus is going to be doing is they're going to be taking 3 actions per turn of the 3 options that they have. They're going to have just a deck of cards. And to start with, they have a total of 4 different cards in their hand at any available time. And I say 4 available because one of the actions that they're going to have to take is to redraw. You do not automatically refill your cards here. And these cards are going to allow you to many different things. And the tricky part with the cards is they're all going to have a cost. And this cost on the left side of the card is actually how many of these blocks you have to reveal to the shark, so that the shark starts to then know a little bit by process of elimination what and where, and also where isn't the octopus. And you're going to be slowly doing this, but it allows you then to shuffle or move, in this case, 2 hidden blocks. Now, octopus can maneuver in 2 different ways. They can shuffle blocks, meaning they put them all back into the bag, they redraw them and put them out hidden again. But the shark actually gets to pick, when the one is drawn, where it's actually going. So that's a little bit of a balance mitigation there, if you will. Then you also have things, defensive maneuvers of rehiding those blocks in the first place and swapping, because that's the other one that you can do if you move. And then you can just swap as well there with the octopus. Your octopus, though, however, is going to have a deck over here that they are going to be able to upgrade, because that is the other aspect that they are going to be utilizing very heavily in this game. And that is actually the learn ability on the octopus, which means you are then taking one of the cards over here, the top face-up card from one of the 4 decks that are available to you. Defensive maneuvers, crafting, learning, as well as the food. And the food actually comes with its own separate tile. And so when you grab this tile, you also get to place that out. And that's the one that you're going to have to eat by getting next to it and playing the card while you're adjacent to it out there. But it has to stay out there as well. And if the shark knows where that is, well, they can start to guess where you might be going or heading. There are 4 of those that you're going to have to eat if you're the octopus, if you want to win that way. The other win condition that I mentioned is if the shark runs out of energy. If the shark, as they use their search and strike actions, they have to be able to put them over here. If the shark fills up this energy track on the side, again, they lose if the octopus has essentially exhausted them to the point of no return. So that's the game in a nutshell. Pros, cons, everything else in between. Well, the big pro of this game is that it's really approachable. It's really great for an asymmetric game not to have too many rules overheads or too many different actions that each side can have. You can approach this game either as the shark and the octopus and not need to know what the other side can do completely to feel like you can still have mastery, or at least partial mastery, to make you feel good enough to any extent of being able to do your best on your side. And as a learning game, I mean, it's only going to be about 20 minutes per player in this game. So you're looking at 45 minutes, maybe even 30 or less, depending on how fast your actions are taking. The other aspects of things is that, you know, as the shark, as well as the octopus, you get to upgrade your deck as the octopus. You get to upgrade your abilities as the shark. And both of those things are very, very satisfying as a whole. The cleverness of being able to use the currents and having these blue dice to be able to go much faster across there, as well as the shuffle swapping that the octopus, really changes the dynamic of a game on a turn-by-turn basis. There's a lot of I don't know where things are at in a positive way. The multi-use dice of the shark, of being able to either use them for the abilities, to store them up, to be able to gain cards and abilities that way, or to eventually have to place them in order to strike at the octopus, is clever, it's unique, and it's not overly complex, because that's the other thing I fear in a game like this, where you have these mechanisms. Again, the octopus is rather straightforward. You're drawing cards, you're winnowing your deck, you are slowly maneuvering and manipulating, sort of playing catch me if you can, if you will. Cons, what are people not going to like? Well, there might not be as much mitigation from the dice rolling, especially with these yellow and red spots, because many of them are, as you can see on the board, 4s and 5s around the outer edges. And that's going to make it a little bit difficult. And the octopus is really going to have to pay attention to be able to utilize that. But it's also going to be at the whimsy of fate when you roll those dice in the first place. Like if I did right there, you see that I rolled a 1 and 3 and 3, which is going to make all of these other abilities and modifiers and mitigators from the shark side of things that much more, well, even crucial, more crucial than you may like in this game that is already very luck prevalent in the first place. The other aspect of things is, you know, the shark is going to be going after the octopus, and the octopus is going to have to maneuver and bluff very, very thoroughly. There is a lot of meta thinking going on with this game. That can lead to a little bit of a stalemate. It can also lead to a little bit of just turns that are not as active as you may like. If the octopus is solely playing keep away, if you will, the octopus does not have to go after the food. And it almost sometimes feels like it's a little easier if they don't, if the shark knows that the food is out there in the first place. The other side of things with the octopus is that these 4 decks that are available to you over here, I mean, there's only so many cards in the prototype that we've got. So there's a little bit of a limited, I know what I'm getting, I know what I've got, and I kind of go towards the same thing every time if I'm playing as the octopus each time. The other aspect is that, you know, they're face up and they're in that order. So you may not necessarily get the traps, or you may not necessarily get the food in the order in which you really would prefer. It's not like go through and shuffle when you draw one from that. It's just grab the top one and incorporate it into your discard pile so that it eventually comes back up to the top. And again, that's a deck building plus or minus if you prefer or don't prefer that randomness to go along with it. Another con to go along with this is if that is more of the octopus player's approach, that this game could drag on a little bit longer than you may prefer. Because the benefit of this is quick, snapping decisions in order to maximize the dynamic back and forth. But if one player is really, you know, struggling with that, especially on the octopus side, it could lead to some downtime, which makes it maybe potentially stay too long on your tabletop in the first place if you're looking for more of a quick back and forth. The other aspect from the shark, well, I mean, like I said, you have the drawing of the dice. So there are going to be turns, especially when you're rolling 2 dice, you're only going to potentially get 1 or 2 colors on a turn-by-turn basis. And so it's going to be a lot more forward turn thinking rather necessarily than always I'm taking dramatic game-changing actions on a turn-by-turn basis, which makes that previous point of having turns that are quick and snappy more important to get to that point in the first place. So final thoughts on this. This is a tremendous game. I really like the dynamic of this, but the hidden bluffing, especially on the octopus side of things, is going to require a player that likes that particular aspect much more so than the shark, which is going to be a much more generalized, easier fit for a lot of players. You may like the counters that go along with this in terms of the if I find the octopus, but it can also be a little anticlimactic if the shark is just super aggressive, super lucky, and then also super lucky. It can make games rather short and rather anticlimactic in that sense. But the nice part about that is, well, if it does happen, well, you just play it again, because if you're really that familiar with it in the first place, it should only take you about 20 to 30 minutes. And so from that, it's a nice balance. But if you're someone who is going to play more of keep away, if you're more of the catch me if you can, this game may not have as much direct confrontation as you may want it to in an asymmetric head-to-head, emphasis there on that aspect of things, if that's really what you're looking for as a whole. All in all, it's a great game. Overall, the low overhead and the simplistic mechanisms do not lack the depth of tactical play that can go along with it. And that's what you look for in a game like this in the first place, and which is why, you know, I heartily endorse this game if any of these things sound good to you. Again, I wouldn't mind seeing a few more shark powers on the board here, because it's always 1, 2, 3, 4. I wouldn't mind a little bit of variability or a little bit of more control on the deck building side of things. But those are minor aspects and could be easily mitigated with a little bit of additional content that I'm not privy to yet, or the mini expansion that they've talked about that's going to be available for backers as well during the campaign. So all in all, very happy with this one. This is really a pleasure to play, and I can't really say enough good things about it. So there you go. Kelp, thanks for watching. Stay classy. Have a great freaking day.